To demonstrate working with the file system, I've created a simple Windows Forms application with 3 list boxes. The first list box, drive list, is going to contain a list of available drives on the system. When the user selects one of these drives, the application will populate the folders list box containing all of the subfolders of that particular drive. The third list box will contain the files contained in the selected folder. Note that this isn't extremely complex. You can't select subfolders, for example. Ideally, it'd be implemented with a tree, but I selected this setup simply for simplicity. So the first thing we need to do when the application loads is to populate the drive list. So I will do that in the form1 load event handler. Before we do anything, we need to add the system.io namespace that contains all of the different classes used for accessing the file system. Within the form1 load handler, we want to create a for each loop that iterates through all of the drives and adds them to the drive info list. So we call driveinfo.getDrives. That method returns a collection of drive info objects. Now we just need to add each object to the drive list box. With that done, we need to populate the folders list box whenever the user selects a drive. So I will double click on this to open up the selected index changed event handler for that list box. This event handler is called anytime the user selects a different item in the list box. First, we want to clear any items that might already be in the folders list. So we'll call the items.clear method. I'm going to put all this code that reads the folders within a particular drive into a try catch block. This will let me catch any errors that would occur if the user selects a drive that isn't available. For example, there might be a memory card reader that has a drive letter, but it doesn't have a memory card currently inserted. A simple try catch block that just displays the error message will suffice for our purposes. Within the try block, I will create a drive info object by casting the selected object from the list. If you look up to the for each loop earlier, you'll notice that I added drive info items to the drive list. When the user selects one, I can access that drive info item using drive list.selected item. However, a selected item, as you can see here, returns a generic object. Now, to be able to access that as the original drive info class, I need to cast it, which I do by putting drive info in parentheses directly before selected item. This creates a drive info object named drive that is the item that was selected earlier. So if the user clicks the C drive, the drive instance represents the C drive. With that extracted, I can create a for each loop that iterates through the directories within the selected drive. I'm going to iterate through a collection of directory info instances, and I'm going to access the root directory member of the drive I just created. Now within root directory, I can call the getDirectories method, which returns a collection of directory info objects. So the for each loop iterates through each of the directory info objects, putting each one into a separate instance called dir info. I just need to add each instance of the dir info to the folders list items. So now when the application runs, it will populate the drive list with a list of available drives. When the user selects a drive, it will populate the folders list with a list of folders within that drive. Now we need to populate the files list with a list of files within that folder. As I did before, I'll double click to create the folders list dot selected index changed event handler. First, I'll clear any existing items by calling the fileslist.items.clear method. Then I'm going to create a directory info instance by casting the selected item to an instance of directory info. Very similar to what I did for the previous event handler. Now, another for each loop will iterate through the directory info.getFiles collection, which contains all the files in the selected directory. That provides me with a collection of file info objects. Now I will add each of those to the items collection in the files list. Let's run our application and see if it works. I will click the C drive. It populates the folders list box with a list of folders. Let's select the Windows folder at the very bottom of the list. You can see that it lists all the items contained within that folder.